Welcome to Midlife Women Entrepreneurs, where you'll find real stories, practical strategies, and the mindset shifts you need for entrepreneurship. If you've ever felt like midlife was too late to launch a business, write a book, or chase a dream, think again. I'm Lynette Turner, your host, and I'm bringing you inspiring conversations and practical tips to help nudge you forward and keep growing in midlife. So let's jump in.
All right. Well, welcome, Sam. I'm excited to talk to you today because you have quite a bit of a background in traveling the world, moving to different locations and places. And I think, there's a lot of your message that can really be a good lead into a lot of people who are thinking about maybe retiring in different locations, people who are moving, people who are just traveling. There's a lot, this rise of the digital nomad and stuff. So that's what we're going to talk about today on the podcast is kind of what is the concept of home? What does home mean to you? We'll talk a little bit about your third generation kid sort of thing. So give us I'm going to hand the floor over to you. Give us a little bit of a background on who is Sam and what is Sam's message?
Hi, Lynette. Thank you so much for having me. It's taken us a while to actually get this to happen, but I'm really, really happy to be here. So who am I? So I am a third generation, third culture kid raising 4 fourth generation, third culture kids. So what does that mean? That basically means that I'm a global nomad. I am actually currently living in my 16th country. I live in Spain right now, in Madrid. And yeah, I've basically been moving all my life. I was born in St. Kitts and Nevis in the West Indies. I lived in various countries in Africa during my childhood. Then I moved to Asia, Hong Kong. And anyway, it just carries on. I've lived in all sorts of places, every single continent except for Australia and South America, actually.
Okay.
And yeah, so I consider myself a bit of a pro in terms of moving because I've done it a lot. I've done it a lot. Right now I'm living in my 29th. Well, I've actually done 29 moves. This is my 29th home. So yeah, that's a lot of homes. And my children, I have 4 of them. They all live, well, actually right now I have 1 that's come back home, but the other 3, they live all over the world. 1 lives in Sydney, Australia, and the other 2 live on the west coast of the US, 1 in Portland, Oregon, and 1 in San Diego.
Awesome. So what makes you, what is really, I know it's like living in third culture kid, like living in different countries, but what was sort of the background that was sort of the catalyst for living in all these countries growing up that way?
So, okay, let me explain a little bit what a third culture kid is.
Yeah.
So a third culture kid is someone that's been raised in a culture other than their parents' culture. It's a person who has been raised in a country other than their nationality, and they've lived in different environments during a significant part of their child development years. So hence I've just said that I was born in St. Kitts and Nevis. I lived in Côte d'Ivoire, Zaire, Zambia, Egypt, all places. My mother is Gibraltarian. My father is British, but he's also a third culture kid. So that's why I'm a third culture kid. My kids are also third culture kids because they are Italian. My husband's Italian. My children were able to get Italian nationality through him. They were not able to get, I actually have a British passport. They weren't able to get British nationality through me because I wasn't born there and nor my parents. So they have Italian nationality, but none of them have ever lived in Italy. So yeah, 2 of them were born in Holland. Actually, 2 were born in Italy, but then we moved away. We went to Holland straight away. They lived in Japan. They lived in the US. And yeah, so yeah, it goes on and on and on. Ask me another question. Sorry. I lost my train of thought.
No, I was just, that's great. Like all these different places to live. You're not really you're not living the culture of your family, but what was the catalyst to making all of these moves?
So my dad, he worked actually for an international bank. Yeah, that was the reason why we moved around when I was younger. And then once I turned 18, I then spread my wings on my own, and I ended up going to France, and I ended up going to university in France. I then continued my travels, went to Turkey, and then I met up with my husband actually when I moved to London. We worked together and it was an office romance, and we ended up moving, the 2 of us, to Italy together. We both got jobs working in different advertising agencies in Milan. And then he managed to find a job working for Nike. So that's when his career sort of, took the forefront to mine. And we basically decided that he would hold the fort in terms of money making and I would hold the fort in terms of everything else. And
Yeah.
we started having a family and having kids. And so we've continued our travels with his career.
Okay. And so his career has actually moved you to these different locations, or now was he sort of trying to get moved? Like, I mean, some people just, you think about 4 kids, traveling the world, moving to different countries. How do you get kids settled? I mean, I love the idea of it, the concept of it, but a lot of people would think, oh, well, maybe I should just sort of, we should root ourselves here, uprooting the kids all the time. How was all of that? Like, did you intentionally try to make these moves?
Actually, yeah. I mean, my life has always been one of movement. So I always get itchy feet after a couple of years I've been in one place. I'm like, oh, it's time to move on. It's been the way it has always been for me. But yeah, when we met each other, he is an Italian. He's from the South. He didn't move away from his hometown until he was 23. So very much, so he had a very, very different background to what I had. And I was actually very attracted to that. So that's sort of stability. But the funny thing is that, he was excited about my background and about the fact that I'd moved around so much. And, he really, really wanted to get out of London. So as I said before, we met in London and, I didn't really want to stay in London and that wasn't what I was, planning on doing. And he wanted to move. So kind of, okay, well, let's go to Italy. Let's see how that is. And then things just sort of happened. It wasn't a plan. It wasn't our plan to move from one place to another, but it was exciting. It kind of reminded me of my upbringing and what I was used to. So we actually, when we were asked, or he was asked to move to Holland, I was like, yeah, sure, no problem. Let's do it. At the time we had a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old. And then we lived in Holland for a very long time. We were there for 8.5 years, which is actually quite a long time. But I'll never forget this conversation that we'd actually just moved a third time within Holland. And I was unpacking boxes and my husband calls me and he says, hey, Tokyo or London? It was just like a random question like that. And I said, duh, Tokyo.
Tokyo, exactly.
And he was like, and he started laughing. So he's obviously with someone else. He was actually with his manager. And he said to his manager with me on the phone, he said, I told you she'd say Tokyo. So
that's so good.
So we moved to Tokyo. So it's just been, it wasn't a plan. It just happened. And we've absolutely loved it. And we continue to love it. After that, we went to the US. And then after that, we went back to Italy. And now we're in Spain. So
right. Okay. So while you're talking about all of the travels and moving here, moving there, I think about like, oh my God, you must be so exhausted. Like, do you ever get exhausted, tired of moving different countries? Because I mean, you've got like different situations, right? The language barrier. I don't know how many languages you speak, but you've got language barrier, you've got kids to acclimatize and like your point where, you liked that sort of nomadic lifestyle. Your husband was, but you were kind of maybe like trying to settle down a little bit. Your husband was like, hey, but I like that nomadic lifestyle. So the nomadic lifestyle is like, I think it's, I don't know. Do you think it's for everybody? Like, do you?
Yeah,
I know. Yeah.
It's definitely not for everybody. Absolutely. Because, I mean, the one thing for me, I think the reason why I do it is because I'm used to this and this is what I know.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bit daunting for me to think, oh, I'm going to be staying in the same place for the rest of my life because I've never done that.
Okay.
I get excited about the next step, the next move, the next challenge, the next adventure, the next language I need to learn. Yeah, I love all of that. Having said that, I'm getting older. I'm not sure about wiser, but definitely older. And I am getting a little bit tired about, starting from scratch again and reinventing myself because I've done that over and over and over again. Is it for everybody? No, it's definitely not for everybody, but it is a fun way to live and it definitely keeps you young and energetic and definitely it's very, very challenging, but it's exciting at the same time. So I do recommend it.
Yeah.
my husband and I are really still very much enjoying the changes that we're making. We're both learning Spanish. We're both discovering Spain. We're creating a community here in Madrid, slowly but surely. And yeah, who knows what the next step's going to be? Would we go back to Italy? Because I think that's probably where we'll end up. We're not really sure, but that's probably likely, mainly because of his ties. But I've actually become very, very close to Italian culture and his family too. And just, I feel quite at home there as well. And we've lived in 3 different places in Italy. We've lived in Milan, in Bologna, and in Modena. So, and we have a home down in the south of Puglia, which is where my husband's from. So we have quite a few strong ties taking us back there. So, yeah, I would recommend it every single time.
Yeah, exactly. So your journey has been obviously, okay, so the nomadic lifestyle, it's not for everybody. What would you say? I mean, if you had to really sort of hone in on like one challenge, what is the one challenge that the nomadic lifestyle can bring to somebody? And then how would you overcome that challenge?
I think a lot of people think, oh, starting over again every time, making new friends, creating community, that is a challenge to a lot of people who haven't done this kind of thing or can't even imagine doing this kind of thing. But it's actually, I wouldn't say easy, but if you, put the right foot forward and you move with a positive mindset, then things do tend to fall into place. A positive mindset for me is making connections. And how do you make connections? You make connections through the international community, if you're moving from one place to another with a job, obviously through work, through your partners. Maybe if you're traveling with children, you're moving with children through the school, being involved with the school, just things like that, not being afraid to just step out of your comfort zone. Owning the moment, being in the here and now, just embracing this, okay, yes, this is difficult. This is going to be hard. Say you're moving, like when we moved to Tokyo, obviously we didn't know any Japanese, but
Right.
before we moved, I made sure that all of us, including the children, we had 10 sentences that we could just spiel off,
Okay.
like the, survival Japanese.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Or any language, to be honest, like, you get a few
wherever
key
you
phrases.
go.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's
Yeah.
super important. The language is super, super, super important. Even though, in this day and age, it's actually quite easy to connect with international communities and find, other like-minded people, other international people, other expats. I do recommend that. However, I do really recommend you learn the local language, or you try and learn the local language anyway.
Exactly. Yeah,
Super
exactly.
important.
Yeah, right. So you have started to share your story a bit. People have been asking you, what is it like? Maybe go into a little bit of that. Like, how are you sharing your story? What are people curious about? I think about like somebody who might be listening to this podcast, might be a midlife woman. She's thinking, or maybe she's single, maybe she's with a partner, but they're thinking about moving to a different country now. And, I think that sort of sense of like uprooting yourself, leaving your friends and family behind and going to, let's say, across the pond to, in this way, a different direction. So let's say, for example, me moving from North America, let's say to Portugal or something like that. What kind of things are people asking you in these talks that you're doing?
Yeah. So they're just asking me how do I get integrated into this new community, or what do I pack, or
Okay.
the kind of how do I get to that positive mindset, and how to get to that positive mindset. I mean, one would hope that if you're moving from one country to another, it's out of choice. Okay, it's very different if it's not out of choice. We're talking, this is a scenario that is out of choice. Okay, so yeah, you put on that positive mindset. You try and reach out to people who may have lived there before, or other people that have lived there and who have friends who are still there. Start before you even move to do that, to start making connections. Get excited about the culture, about what you can see, what you can do when you're there. I do really passionately believe in community. That's what's really helped me make the best of every single place that I've lived so far. And yeah, just reach out. Don't be scared. I mean, that's one thing, because when you're not in your comfort zone, you tend to sort of hide,
Exactly.
and that is very easy to do. But you've already made that big decision to move to a new place, so that already is actually very adventurous and brave.
Yeah.
So you just need to take that extra step, saying, okay, I'm here now. I need to actually find some like-minded people, or I need to learn the language, just to get your foot out of the door. That is the most important thing to do.
I agree.
And once you're out, then you'll meet people, and yeah.
Yeah. And I think too, you think about the opportunities, like, way back in the day, people were just staying in the same city for their entire life and, just until they died. And I think now we're very much changing the way we think about travel, the way we think about even consumption of things. Like, I know I've gone to a very minimalist lifestyle. I think, for me, it's less about the things that I have and more about the experiences, that I'm creating for myself. I am doing what I'm doing solo, so it's a little bit different. I do absolutely crave that sense of community. And that is the only thing, like when I talk to other nomads that are single, that's exactly what they're saying. It's lonely. And sometimes I feel like, you talk about the international community. And to me, I felt like maybe I was a little bit reluctant to jump into that international community called the expat community, because I wanted to be embedded into the culture. And now where I moved to is completely different than you. I'm very much in a beach town, lots of expats there, but maybe not what I'm interested in. We don't have the same goals kind of thing. They're more in retirement. And so I think for me, my move, where I'm going with this story is I feel like my move was a little bit hasty, and I didn't think through exactly where I was headed. And now what I've realized is I know exactly what I don't want in my next move, and I know exactly what I do want. So when we were talking on our pre-call, you talked a lot about like just getting on the path and being open to different things, which has now led you to writing a book. So just a little bit of background on that. You said, everybody has a book in them. Everybody has a story in them, whether it's a book or a blog or whatever. And you've been sharing a lot of your journey through blogging and now moving towards the book. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's right. So I actually started a blog called wanderingidentity.com a while back, about 6 or 7 years ago, when I was living in the US. And, it was just basically me writing stories about my childhood stories about where I'd lived in Africa mainly. And I kind of slowly developed a little following and got bigger and bigger, and people were super excited. And they were like, my God, Sam, why don't you write a book? I'm like, well, let's see. Anyway, now it's been about 2 years now since I've been writing my book. It's a memoir. It's about a woman seeking and finding the true meaning of home. So it's obviously my story. Mm-hmm. And I'm almost done. I actually have a publisher, and she's waiting to have my final manuscript in her hands so that she can go through it by the end of January. So it's really, really very, very soon.
You're on the clock?
Yes, I'm very much on the clock.
You have 7 days left.
Yeah, exactly. No pressure.
No pressure.
Yeah. So I do have the title. It's called Beneath a Borrowed Sky. And it basically, the book is about relationships. It's about forming true friendships. It's about community. It's about home. What is home?
Right.
And home can be, and is for me, an amalgamation of things. It's places. It's a family heirloom. It's your best friend. It's your favorite Cyndi Lauper track.
Right.
Yeah. It's all sorts of things. But it's a discovery. The book is a discovery of what home is for me.
Right. And I think that's such a good question. Like, what is home? And I think, when you think about even just what I said about starting to live more of a minimalist lifestyle, not carrying around all this stuff with me or keeping things in storage or, having a house full of things, it's like, what is home? And I don't even know if I actually have that question in a way where I can respond to it yet. I still feel like, people say home is where the heart is or those types of things, but how do you really find home?
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely. And that's what my book is all about, because everyone has a different answer. I think the challenge for people like me, people like third culture kids in general, is the question, where are you from? That
Right.
is the hardest question for me to answer. So, when you listen to me, you can hear my British accent. So you immediately put me in a pigeonhole.
Yeah.
And yes, I have a British passport, but I have lived 4 years of my life entirely in the UK. So I went to boarding school there, but I don't really count that as living there, because I literally would just, wherever my parents were, I would jump on the plane. I'd be in the British institution for 3 months, then I'd jump back on the plane and go back home. So I would do that. So that wasn't home for me. The UK has never been home for me. But the where I'm from, everyone just sort of goes, yeah, okay, you're from the UK. So, and then they start asking me all these things about the UK. Well, I know nothing about the UK.
Ask me about Tokyo, Italy, and all these other places, but
Yeah, exactly. I could definitely tell you so much more. In fact, I know so much about the south of Italy, and even Modena now, because we just recently moved from there. So yeah, the where are you from is a very, very tricky question. And my kids find it very, very difficult to answer that too, because they have Italian passports. But 2 of them were born there, but they moved when they were 2 and 1. And then the other 2 have never lived there before. Live there either. So, and their Italian isn't that great. Their mother tongue is English.
right.
It's even trickier. At least I can speak English.
Yeah. Exactly. So let's go back to that. Home is like, what is home? I'd be curious to what are a couple of the key messages that are going to come out of your book around really trying to find that? Yeah. Like how can you start to create that, I guess, for yourself? Let's say I decide, okay, next month I'm going to move to Portugal. I'm going to give it a try. I'm going to see, fully commit to finding the community, the right spot kind of thing. But then what would you say to me if I
Well,
was?
I mean, home is not really a tangible thing. Home is a feeling.
Mhm.
Home is somewhere. Well, it's not somewhere. It's something. It's wherever you feel you're your best you. That's home.
Mhm.
I don't know if I'm making sense, but I guess someone like me who's moved around so much and has created homes all over the world, I ultimately go back to the same thing. Home is where I am. Home is where the heart is. Okay. It is actually a very important quote and a very sensible quote. And I do go by it a lot. Actually, Pico Iyer, the writer, he has a fantastic quote. And he says, let me see where it is. Where did I put it? Home has less to do with a piece of soil than perhaps, let's say, a piece of soul.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that's really, you are happy when you're happy within yourself.
Right.
It's not about where you are. It's really where you are here inside.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, that's the message I kind of try. And
Well, and I love that message because I think it's what that is like where the heart is. And the heart, from one of my other podcasts, we were talking about sort of this masculine energy and feminine energy. And the masculine energy is like your thinking, your cognitive, and then your heart is your feminine. And I think that's what, when I think about the heart, it's kind of like leading your life with intuition and being kind of in flow and just, I mean, obviously you still need your masculine to kind of push you and take risks, but you've got this thing where, lead with what's going to make you happy. And I think your quote was bang on, like a piece of soil. So I don't like it. I'm not happy here in Mexico. So I'm going to move to Portugal and then we'll try it there. See if I'm happy there. But I think it's regardless of where I am, or where anybody is, it's what are you doing to make yourself happy?
yeah, it's ultimately here. This is where home is. And if it's, within you. And if you were unhappy in a particular place and then you move and you're still unhappy in another place, then you have to kind of think to yourself, well, what's going on here? It's not just because of the place. It's actually probably more to do with yourself, with what's going on inside you.
Right. So, Sam, talk about the reinvention, because you said that earlier. And I think about this all the time, because sometimes, as we get older, we think, oh, it's too late. It's too late to do this. It's too late to reinvent myself. It's too, I want to try something here, but, our gremlin kind of gets in the way, our inner critic. And, so tell me what was reinvention like for you?
So, as I mentioned, my husband and I, we decided that he would hold the fort in terms of money making and I would hold the fort in terms of everything else. So, I was a full-time mum for 25 years, moving around. I was sort of like the CEO of the family right. CEO. Yeah.
Yeah.
Organizing all the moves and new schools and making sure the kids were okay and their new environments and everything like that. And then, when we were in the US, they were growing up and getting older, and the first one got his driver's license, and the second one got her driver's license, and the third one, I was like, oh my gosh, It became more and more independent. And I thought, what, I probably need to do something. And this is when my website, my blog started sort of, getting quite a bit of following, and and I thought, what, maybe this is what I need to do. And I started exploring the idea of writing, and it's just slowly gotten more and more exciting as the years have gone by. I guess I've had a few doubts, because when you don't work for 25 years, work is in the professional world, because of course I've worked my ass off, excuse my language, in terms of being the family CEO, but the professional side of things, kind of scary and a little bit daunting, putting yourself out there. But I did. And it feels absolutely wonderful. It feels great. I feel like I have found myself again. I am giving talks to international schools. I've been giving talks. I gave a couple of talks in Madrid to the international community about growing up across borders and what that's like. Also being able to actually give sneak peeks of my book, Beneath a Borrowed Sky, as well. So that's been super exciting. It's just been great. It's just been slowly developing. And now I'm about to launch my first book, and I have a couple of other talks planned, one in the UK and one in Italy this year, and then after that I'll start promoting my book, so I'll be traveling around the world. And I say the world because I do have a lot of contacts all over the world, so that's going to be super exciting doing that myself. So I've reinvented myself as to become an author, a writer, but I have actually done a little bit of reinventing beforehand as well. I worked in an international school in Tokyo. I was their admissions officer there. I absolutely loved it, because it meant that I got to meet all sorts of people from all over the world and help them make the right decisions for their kids. And it felt fabulous and wonderful. Felt like I was in the right place. I also taught English in Italy, and I was a relocation agent, or whatever you call it. I worked for a relocation agency in Italy. So as I've moved, and I've done all sorts of things, and it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I think about that. Like, I think, okay, so, I mean, the concept of home and, the whole book, in some ways, I feel like, what made you think that people would want to read a book like that? Like, I think, and I ask you that because I think about a lot of women who, like, no one would want to hear that story or my story. And, and again, that gremlin sort of kicking in. Did you ever sort of face that inner critic where you're like, wait, what? Like, this isn't going to work. Nobody's going to want to hear my message. I've got nothing to say. Like, how are you writing a whole book on home, and your travels? Like, and to make it, obviously when we're writing books, you're sending your message. It's for you, but it's also for the reader as well to glean something, so how did you sort of tame your gremlin? Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's so hard. Yeah, the whole limiting beliefs thing is real. How did I do it? Well, like, for example, the first talk I ever did was at the beginning of 2024 in Italy, at the International School of Modena. And I'd never stood up and actually given a talk. I had done it a long, long time ago, 25 years ago. So what did I do? I actually went on a little course, to help me, to give me some tips for public speaking. And that was huge. I was super nervous to actually do the course in the first place, but I actually went and I did it. And then I practiced like crazy, and I was just, I can do this. I was pumping myself up, and I was able to, I just practice and practice and practice. And I did it, and it was very successful. And I've been asked to go back again once my book is published. So that's very, very exciting too. So yeah, those limiting beliefs are there, but I choose to, say, I know that you're there, but I'm choosing to ignore you, and I'm choosing to do what I want to do.
Yeah, the reframe. I actually have a program. One of my modules in my program is taming your gremlin, because that's everything I see is when we're trying, and it usually shows up when we're trying to do something outside of our normal, right? And so it's just a way to protect you. It's your subconscious saying, no, Sam, no, Lynette, don't do that. It's going to be too much work. You're going to be frustrated or whatever. So nobody wants to read your story. Like, why would anybody want to read your story? And so that's right. It's like, you've got to say, you know what? I have something, and, people want to hear my message clearly, right?
Well, I was very surprised after the first talk that I did at the International School of Modena, how many teachers and parents and even children came up to me and totally and utterly resonated with what I had to say and had so many questions. I was shown around the school afterwards by a bunch of the 12th graders, and some of them also said, "Oh, would you mind? Some of us have got other questions. Would you mind coming and sitting with us and helping us, figure out some things?" So I was so flattered with that.
Yeah,
it was great. So it really is. I mean, I didn't realize how much it would resonate, but it really does resonate with the international community, with obviously other third culture kids, with anyone who has to make a move.
Yeah.
And not just with people my age and our age, but even younger kids as well.
Well, I think it's just more widely adopted. I mean, I think about my uncle, who's, I'm going to guess maybe in his 70s now. And, he went over to Japan when he was like 19 with back then it was like backpackers, living in hostels, teaching English. That's exactly what he did. But he ended up staying there for 20 years. So he's since moved back to Canada. But, I think today, there's just more sort of open-mindedness to this nomadic lifestyle, even though I do, and this may be a good question for you, people are still like, oh, wait, what? Like, even yesterday, I was on a call with somebody, and they're like, so what have you learned in the last 4 years, Lynette? 'Cause I've been out and about for 4 years. And I kind of rattled off, like, definitely you've got to like embed into the community right away. And if the community's not working for you, you've got to go. And instead, I kind of stuck around, but it's like, you've got to really move with that intuition and flow with it. And if it's not working, don't second guess it, move on, kind of thing. It's like, I think now and then she was like, oh, like I said, everything right now that I own, maybe I have a box of shoes and handbags and a few clothes at my friends still, but I said, everything I own is in 3 suitcases. And it was like, wait, what? And I guess mine's more of a digital nomad type of lifestyle. But I've even had that question before, like, so like, do you have a home? And I'm like, the point of that is like, people are still attached to this thing where you need your things, like, and I feel like now, I think maybe, yeah.
I think,
Go ahead.
It's human nature we're quite territorial people. We like to create home and to create that community and to not, to just stay there. It's just, that's been the norm for so long. And I think that's just innate in us. So ever since COVID, there's been a lot more movement. But I do think that ultimately the majority of people prefer to stay in one place. They prefer to be rooted because, you know, you do feel, I mean, there are times where my husband and I, we feel a little bit untethered and we're like, okay, what's going on here? And then we try and figure out why. Maybe it's because we've been traveling way too much in that particular month, or then we need to settle down and we need to meet more people. I don't know. But yeah, you kind of try and figure it out, but it's definitely not the norm. We think it is the norm because that's the kind of people that we hang around with and who we meet. That's the community that we have, but it's definitely not. When I go back to the south of Italy and meet with my husband's friends and my husband's family, they think that we're completely and utterly nuts. They don't understand anything.
I know. And so in that right there, I think is a really key message is like, if you do what your heart desires and you don't have to be the same as everybody else, and you've got to, you know, I think you talked about it throughout this whole conversation about having the right mindset and really embracing what you're planning on doing. But I do like and maybe I'm paraphrasing the key message here, but I sort of stuck on this. It's not a piece of soil, because sometimes I think we move because we're hoping that this life of ours is going to get better at that new location, or, you know, well, I hate it here. It's too cold. I'm going to move south for the winter, or move south, and it's going to be warmer. It's going to be better. But I think there's a lot more to understanding why you are making a move. I don't really know the answer to that yet, but that's the feeling that I'm getting is, okay, what is it that I'm searching for, I guess?
Yeah. What are you searching for? Are you searching for, I just don't think there's the perfect place for anybody.
No.
It depends on who you are there and then and where you are here in your heart. So that is the perfect place. If you're at ease with yourself, then you will feel more at home wherever you are.
Exactly. Yeah, no, that's exactly. And I think it's a constant search. And, you know, you journaling, I think journaling, blogging, I think it's probably been a really good release for you as well. Like maybe, I mean, subconsciously as you write, you're getting those answers as well.
Well, the really interesting thing is that, you know, I mentioned that I'm actually third generation global nomad. So my father did it and my great grandmother did it too. My grandmother and my great grandmother. So, you know, it's been sort of like a way of life for us for generations. And yeah, I lost my train of thought. Sorry, scrap that.
Well, no. And actually, so where I thought you were going to go with this is like, you know, a lot of people will stay where they put it because they want to be closer to their kids. Your kids are also moving around. And so it's just like you said, your dad was this way, your grandmother was this way. And so the normal for you is not to see your kids for Sunday dinners, every Sunday dinner. You know, the norm for you is like, okay, I saw on Instagram, you go, you know, at Christmas time, you were all together. You were so happy and, you know, and sad to see them go. But it also, I think, then allows you to live your life, because I think we live our life for kids. You were the CEO of the family for so long. And then as they leave the nest and, you know, you have this event, there's an event in everybody's life at some point that makes them shift and pivot to a new direction. And I think, you know, embracing that and yeah.
Absolutely. It'll be interesting to see what my kids end up doing, you know, whether they will stay where they are right now or whether they will continue moving. Yeah. Watch this space. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. And I think one thing you said too is like, some people prefer to be that rooted, and some, you know, and I think of a tree, right? So you've got the roots of the tree, the trunk and the leaves, and some people are okay with the leaves, you know, being a leaf and just kind of following around and seeing. But sometimes I get that feeling of, okay, I just need to do some roots. I've been doing this for 4 years now. I need to get rooted again for some reason. And maybe that's just like what my heart is saying. So, you know, maybe I might go back to Canada, just regroup and just like kind of ground myself and, you know, maybe then go from there and see what happens kind of thing. So.
Yeah. I mean, the important thing is to be doing what your heart's desire, you know, your heart desires, you know,
Right.
where you're doing or you are where you want to be, and you're getting some sort of satisfaction out of that, whether that
Exactly.
be with work, with the love side of your life,
Yeah.
or the place, the beaches, the people that you're meeting, whatever. And I think that the key thing here is, you know, nothing is constant. Just because you decide to move to Portugal doesn't mean that that's a forever thing.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work out, you can move on. You can try
Exactly.
something else. It's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, my daughter, for example, she might be, well, she's been, well, there is a possibility for her to be moving from one state to another in the US. And, and it's all a bit of a hoo-ha, and she's okay with it, but other people in her life might not be. And I said, look,
Right.
try it,
Yeah.
see how it works. If it doesn't work out, you can always move back, but
Exactly.
just don't, box yourself in. If that's what you want to do, then just make it happen.
Yeah. And I think make it happen based on what you want. I mean, we often give from sometimes an empty glass, we're constantly giving to others. We're constantly making sacrifices for others. So start first from like what you want. And like you said, if it doesn't work, you can always move. The one question is like, if it doesn't work, is there this fear of, going back and people saying, oh, that didn't work? See, told you, kind of thing. Like that would be sort of maybe something that people would think as well.
Well, I mean, people are going to think whatever they're going to think anyway, no matter what you do.
Right.
So
Right.
I think, again, that comes from what you want to do. If you think the best thing is for you to go back, then great, go and do it and embrace that fully. I find it really difficult when I hear people say, well, what's everyone going to think? It doesn't really matter what everyone thinks, as long as you're doing what you want to do. As long as you're doing your heart's desire, that's the most important thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that makes you go ahead.
A lot of people would think that's a failure, but it's not a failure, because you've followed your heart. You've said,
Right.
okay, you know what? This is what I want to do. You've said yes to the adventure, and to the challenge. And as I said, some things don't work out for whatever reason, and it doesn't matter, but you said yes, you did it, and now you've come back. And then you're a new person
Exactly.
anyway. You're not the same person because you've done that. You said yes to that thing, and then you've come back a completely different person. So you're probably going to live a better life in the same place. It's not like you've gone back to the same thing again. Anyway.
I love that. Say to the adventure. I love it. That's what we're going to title this podcast. Say yes to the adventure, because I think that's such really good advice, because you will always be with wonder. You will always be with regret. And by God, I'm not going to be, I mean, even on my travels, sometimes I meet people who have, in my personal opinion, maybe the universe is putting them there for me so that I can see what I don't want just as much as see what I want. And I feel like I'm running into more of what I don't want than what I do want. So anyway, that's a whole other podcast.
Yeah.
So,
but it's good. All the experiences are good, and I do this with, I say it to my kids, every single experience, no matter whether it's positive or negative, it's a good thing. And, because it helps you develop yourself, helps you to understand who you are, and, helps you to move on from wherever you are into a better place, hopefully.
Exactly. Well, Sam, that was great. I love the calmness of this conversation. I love that sort of like, it was very insightful and introspective, and just kind of, okay, listen, I can do this. If you're thinking about traveling, if you're thinking about moving to a different country, think first and foremost, how are you going to embed yourself in that community? All really great messages. How would people get to read your blog? Why don't you give us a little bit of that?
So it's wonderingidentity.com.
Okay, Wandering Identity. Okay.
Yes. So wondering with WA, not WO.
Yeah. Right.
And it's the same on Instagram, Wondering Identity.
Okay.
I'm actually I'm quite busy on Instagram.
That's good. Well, I'll put all the links in the show notes. And Sam,
Fabulous.
I just want to say thank you for taking time out of your day to join me on the podcast today. I think your story is very inspirational, and just, yeah, like just again, that message of just get on the path and the universe will put what it needs to in front of you. And I think that's such a great,
Yeah,
you're a great example of
believe in yourself. Believe in yourself as well.
exactly.
Yeah.
So,
Well, thank you so much,
okay.
Lynette. It's been wonderful chatting with you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, it's Lynette. Thanks for listening today. Please like and subscribe. And if there's somebody out there that you think could benefit from the episode, give it a share. Midlife is your time, so go get it.